The Egghead Island arc is pretty much over, which poses one really big question. What happens next? And here are some of the questions that I do want to answer with you today, like where are the Straw Hats gonna go next, and will they split up once again? Will the Gorosei hunt them down from now on, and will the Revolutionary Army wage an all-out war on Maurizua? Plus, of course, who will join the crew? However, there is one other game-changing topic that literally no one has been talking about, and is the fact that this arc may actually end way differently than we ever imagined. That's because during chapter 1117, Zoro tells the rest of the crew to launch the Thousand Sunny without him and Jinbei. And I'm here to tell you that this could actually signal that the crew might not leave Egghead Island all in one piece. Now, you might be saying rightfully, Manu, this is just a random statement from Zoro and the monster trio will probably just hop on the ship. I mean, they can all technically fly at this point, and while you aren't necessarily wrong here, some very interesting details I think suggest that the crew will actually once again be split up, similar to the end of the Sabaody arc, which of course you will probably know is the mirror pre-time skip arc to Egghead. A lot of the stuff is the same. Now, the first question we of course have to ask is, why should Oda even do this? Well, there's actually strong evidence for the crew needing to be separated at this point. Take a look at this. During Sabaody Archipelago, the crew were faced with unkillable enemies such as the cyborg pacifista and Admiral Kizaru, and it just so happens that they are in the exact same situation with the unkillable Gorosei, who they literally can't even damage at all. Now, of course, back then the whole point of Kuma separating the crew back on Sabaody was so that they could actually each grow much stronger and come back ready to face the challenges of the new world. And so if we think about these same circumstances with the current crew and the current arc, we could see them split up in order to learn the secrets of fighting the Gorosei and Imu, and just in general for a bunch of the Straw Hats to actually catch up to that Yonko crew level in the first place. Now, that obviously begs the question, who will teach them these secrets and these new skills? And there are actually a lot of options here. Someone like Shanks makes a lot of sense, or if we want to stick with the parallels of Sabaody, maybe someone like Roger's third in command, Scoppa Gaban, would be the perfect person to teach them the secrets that they actually need in order to fight the Demon Gorosei, since he already knows the true history of the world and probably what they are. That is, of course, would also really nicely fit in with the theme of Roger pirates helping the Straw Hats at the start, the middle, and now pretty much the end of the Grand Line, kind of pushing them in the right direction. And all of this could lead to a scenario where the crew is split up once again. Now, we'll talk more about all of the crazy options for what islands they would probably go to in just a moment, but first, let's address how the crew would even split up here in the first place. I mean, well, we've already mentioned that Zoro told Nami and the others to take off with the Sunny on their own. So if the Sunny does a coup de burst off of Egghead, I mean, there are still the Gorosei around, I really doubt that they'll be able to hang around and wait for the others. And I mean, even the Giant's massive longboat is trying to take off right now, trying to avoid being completely destroyed by the marine forces as well. So if the ships are already far out at sea, it's kind of highly likely that Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei, the power quadruple, would still be stuck on the island, especially if they still have to fend off the Gorosei. Now, this would leave them needing another route of escape, and if we look back to Sabaody, it was, of course, Kuma who separated all the Straw Hats in the first place, but this time around, he probably won't be filling that exact same role. So it could just mean that someone like Kizaru is actually the one who this time around splits up the crew with his light abilities. Or heck, even something that I would love to see is a reunion between Luffy and Vivi if Big News Morgan's hot air balloon ship can just swoop in and pick up some of the remaining Straw Hats. Okay, but let's just for a moment actually assume that this is what's gonna happen. Then where in the world would all the Straw Hats be heading next? Of course, someone has to go to Elbaf, and if we're assuming that the crew is splitting up right here, I just have to imagine that it would be Usopp's group that would be the ones going to the home of the Giants. I mean, this group of course also includes Nico Robin, because she needs to reunite with Saul. Usopp has all the connections to all the Giants there, so they would be the perfect ones to go meet the Giants and collect potentially actually the final road poneglyph that probably maybe is on Elbaf, question mark? We'll get back to that later. But that of course leaves just one other major question. Where do the monster trio and Jimbei go? Well, we've already discussed the possibility of Gaban revealing himself in the end and putting them through some sort of small training camp arc. That would be obviously super awesome, and maybe that could even take place on an island like Roadstar Island, since that's just always where I've assumed Gaban would be, the last official island of the Grand Line. Though potentially it's also an island where Nami could go to. I know there's been some crazy theories about Nami potentially originally being from that island, and I mean in general it would be kind of cool to have a third group of Straw Hats go to a third island. But speaking of training here for a second, there is of course one other secret ability that Luffy will surely still need to learn in order to actually reach Laugh Tale, and that's something that you've probably considered, but at this point I'm about 80% certain that Laugh Tale is somewhere underwater. Because I mean, come on, I mean, with everything that we've just learned from Vegapunk about the world flooding, and the fact that both Roger and Shanks' crew have no devil fruit users at all, I'm more convinced than ever pretty much that the crew will need to go underwater one more time at some point. I mean, why doesn't Shanks' crew have any devil fruit users? Huh? So he will either need to learn a secret way to go underwater, or the other option is that he will need to unflood the world, but we'll discuss more on that again in just a minute. Back to potential islands though for now, because there's actually another really likely destination that you've maybe even forgotten about by now. Because remember that during this very same arc, Luffy's grandfather Garp was also defeated by the Blackbeard pirates, or more specifically Kuzan, I guess, but that happened on Hachinosu Pirate Island, basically Blackbeard's headquarters. Now, I know it seems like so long ago and so much has happened in this arc, and we'll discuss Blackbeard plans for Garp in just a few moments as well. There's a lot to cover, but if Luffy learns that his grandfather has been captured, I mean, is there any chance in the world that Luffy isn't just rushing to that island trying to pull off some sort of Marineford style rescue mission where the strongest Straw Hats storm Blackbeard's headquarters in order to try and rescue Garp? And maybe that's just me fantasizing here a little bit, but I honestly don't think any other group right now would be powerful enough at this point to save the hero of the Marines, besides maybe Shanks' crew or the Fleet Admiral Akainu, but can't really see either of them go and save Garp at this point. So yeah, I hope you are as excited for the future of the story as I am, because there's just so many crazy directions that the next few chapters could go in. And I wouldn't just assume that the whole crew is heading off straight to Elbaf right away, as Oda has kind of been very awkwardly like pushing onto us. I'm always a little bit suspicious when it happens. One thing we do know for sure though is that the world government will never be the same ever again, and that their future is a lot darker than ever. Like seriously, after what we've recently seen on Egghead Island and with Vegapunk's very long broadcast, there is no way that the world will ever look at the world government the same way in the future. There was also the Gorosei's mysterious demon powers, which even made Marines question their loyalty, and who can blame them really? And we can't also forget the reveal that Leloucia was destroyed by an ancient weapon. In other words, there are gonna be a ton of questions that the Gorosei will want to erase as well going forward. I mean, we still have the Great Cleansing coming up, but before we dive into that entire discussion, we first have to ask, what will the Gorosei actually do next? Will they go and try chase the Straw Hats, or simply return to Marijua? And if I had to guess, I'd probably say they will for now stay on Egghead Island until they actually secure everything that's on there. I mean, remember that the Gorosei were never really after the Straw Hats in the first place. The whole reason Saint Saturn came to Egghead Island was to eliminate Vegapunk and secure the Mother Flame. So with those two goals probably mostly accomplished, there's really no other reason for them to continue chasing Luffy and the crew. There's of course also the very real question of whether they can even leave the island in their demon form, since they did arrive in these strange summoning circle type thingies. So would they just be able to board a ship and leave regularly, or will they just need to like be resummoned, teleport back to Marijua the same way most of them arrived? Though at the same time, I feel like it just seems like a very powerful ability, and I would just assume that they're just free to go wherever. Either way though, the world just became a way more dangerous place than it already was. And that's because Imu and the Gorosei now have access to the entire Mother Flame energy source. Because remember, this mysterious flame is what powers Imu's ancient weapon, probably Uranus, and before he only had a tiny fraction of the Mother Flame that was stolen by York, probably again, but now with basically unlimited access to that legendary energy source, will Imu just start blasting away kingdoms left and right that rebelled against the world government? I mean, it's certainly possible. It might just be what the entire Great Cleansing is all about, and if that were to happen, then it would have all types of disastrous consequences for the entire world. And that's of course because we've already seen that using this weapon raises the sea level exactly 1 meter, but that was just with this tiny fraction. In other words, even this tiny, relatively small amount was enough to sink many islands around the world. So just imagine if it was used like 5 times or 10 times or 100 times. It would literally wipe out most of the remaining islands left in the entire world. As a result, only those with extremely high elevation such as Drum Island, maybe Alabasta, Dressrosa, Fuji, Onwano, and a few other exceptions would even have a tiny chance of surviving this. Now, I guess it would be good for the fisherman, question mark, if you want to look at it like through a positive lens, but the world-shaking power of Uranus isn't of course the only terrible power about to be unleashed throughout the world, because the future of the world government is most certainly going to include another super powerful force that was introduced during this arc as well. I'm of course talking about the completely freshly introduced, probably Yonko level group of the Holy Knights. Now, in case you've forgotten, these mysterious fighters, they're said to be the ultimate celestial dragons who even serve justice to other celestial dragons. And these mysterious figures are the protectors of Marijua and the entire group of celestial dragons. And since the world is now in chaos and the revolutionaries are stepping up their war on the world nobles as well, we simply must see this insanely awesome new group of fighters getting some action soon as well. But once again, we'll talk more about all the things that the revolutionaries are gonna do in just a moment, which is gonna be insane. But before that, there's another group with inside the Marines we have to talk about, and that's of course the secret marine organization Sword, who we actually saw in a little bit more detail in chapter 1117. In fact, this chapter really makes me think personally that this group of special Marines is going to eventually change sides and fight against the world government. We have the Marine Commander Hibari, who even says that everything Vegapunk said really makes you think. And then just a few panels later, we have the commander of Sword, DS Drake or X Drake, who is looking very much like a man considering his place in the world at this point. And just to remind you again, Drake actually joined up with Luffy during the raid on Onigashima and fought against the world government's secret agents himself. And of course, on top of that, I can also totally imagine Kobe, who is also a member of Sword, asking Luffy to help him rescue Garp if the world government doesn't send anyone to help the famous Vice Admiral. So yeah, I would not be surprised at all if Sword eventually started siding with Luffy in the final battles. I mean, there is a lot of precedents. We don't know if Smoker's part of them or will be part of them, but him, you know, potentially Aokiji, Kobe, Dredd, there's a lot of them. However, you might be surprised to hear that almost no one has a bigger role yet to play in the final saga than this next group of characters. And yes, of course, it's finally time to talk about the Revolutionary Army, who have finally stepped up a little bit, despite a lot of panels of Dragon going ... saying nothing. But still, with everything happening on Egghead Island, it is very easy to forget that the revolutionaries are laying siege to Marijua right now in the manga. Yeah, even I needed to remind myself of that, and you probably didn't know or have forgotten either. And while they aren't directly attacking the Holy Land right now, they are capturing food and supply ships that were meant for the Celestial Dragons, in other words, taking away their resources and basically starving them out. Now, we've already seen some of the result of this back in chapter 1092. So yeah, after finally declaring war on the world government officially, Dragon is now finally putting his big group of freedom fighters into action, and of course this won't come without consequences, because I can just imagine Dragon and the others eventually having to face off with the likes of Gorosei, the Holy Knights, who are also all protecting Marijua. And man, I know that literally any One Piece fan out there really finally wants Dragon to just do something. We don't even need a big fight, but like, you know, who knows, maybe even a clash between Luffy's father and Figerland Garling is hopefully not too far away in the future. We just need this man to do, like, Dragon, please do something. But that's not the only thing in store for the revolutionaries, because after Vegapunk's message and the reveal that the world is now sinking, the Revolutionary Army have quite possibly the biggest bomb to drop on the entire One Piece world, because in case you forgot as well, the world doesn't actually know that the government is the one who destroyed Leloucia in the first place, because for whatever reason, Vegapunk just left that little detail out. But you know who does know? Sabo knows, and so do the rest of the Revolutionary Army leaders. And if they were to broadcast that info to the world, just like Vegapunk did, then it would surely cause way more kingdoms and way more people to join their side in their effort as well, right? Unless, of course, they would be too scared of Imu's super weapon, but for the sake of the story, let's hope, fingers crossed, that Dragon and Sabo do gain more and more followers for the revolutionaries, like, just based on this information. Now, I do know I said that the revolutionaries were possibly the most important group for the future of the story, but there is actually yet another group who could very soon be even more powerful than Imu, and that's, of course, none other than Blackbeard. And just listen to the next step he is very likely to take here. Because again, in case you forgot, okay, I've been saying that way too much, but there was just so much revealed during Egghead Islands, so much for a quick detour arc, am I right? But do you remember that this happened in Wano as well? And then this! Yeah, that's right. This stinky, slimy swamp man has some of the most valuable information in the entire world, and he's being taken right now straight to Blackbeard to reveal the location of not just one, but two of the ancient weapons. Like, this is so next level insane, and you just know that someone like Blackbeard will of course take advantage of the chaos in the world right now to just swoop in and make a play for the world destroying weapons himself. So he could very easily go after the mermaid princess Shirahoshi, who can command the Sea Kings, and then just keep sailing on to Wano, where we're actually having a cover story right now to uncover the secrets of Pluton, which is buried under Wano. And actually, now that I'm thinking about, okay, the play to capture Pluton really just makes a ton of sense when you think about it, because we already know that in order to set Pluton free, the borders of Wano have to be destroyed, and previously we saw the ancient elephant Sunisha coming to do just that, but there is literally no better character to destroy the walls around Wano than Blackbeard with his literal island-destroying Tremor Devil Fruit. Blackbeard is just gonna go boom, walls coming down, Pluton, like, how have I never put those two pieces together before? Makes a lot of sense. But yeah, don't be surprised if you see Blackbeard ending up with control over not just one, but two other ancient weapons very soon, which could make him even more powerful than Imu with just one ancient weapon and the entire world government. Although, speaking of the governments again, we already mentioned that Blackbeard has captured Garp. And while I'm not quite sure how in the world he's even keeping this superhuman marine captured in the first place, like, seriously, I feel like Garp, if he wanted to, could probably break out of any prison and chain, so they must have him locked up super crazy. We do know though that Blackbeard wanted to become an official king of the world's government, so he might try to do the same with Garp, or he might just do some sort of public execution, just like the Marines did with Ace. But then, of course, more than anything else, I also cannot wait for Blackbeard's future role as a member of the D clan. fact, we saw him along with everyone else in chapter 1117, desperately waiting to hear what Vegapunk had to say about the mysterious clan as well. And while I personally like to think that Blackbeard knows a lot more about the D clan than probably a lot of people out there, someone else who's most likely going to play a major role in the D clan storyline is none other than Nefertari D. Vivi, because we recently learned that Vivi's ancestor Lily was also a member of the D clan, so knowing Vivi, she's probably not gonna rest until she finds out all there is to know about the mystery surrounding that name. And honestly, next to Bonnie, Vivi is like the prime candidate for the next Straw Hat, or returning Straw Hat if you wanted to. But coming back to the D clan thing, there might actually be another fan favorite character who might help her in her search for answers, and that's of course Trafalgar D. Walter Law, because currently Law's quest to become Pirate King is pretty much sunk, I would say. I mean, his crew was completely obliterated by Blackbeard and he only barely escaped with Beppo, but instead of becoming Pirate King, we already know that Law's current goal is actually to learn more about the will of D, so I wouldn't be all too surprised to actually see him and Vivi end up searching for clues together. And the reason I like this so much is because this would lead perfectly into one of my current favorite pet theories, that there is a secret sect of D clan members who have preserved their own history and are just waiting to rejoin the fight against the Gorosei. And with more and more pirates around the world hungry now for treasure and eager to explore the lost civilizations sunk beneath the surface of the ocean, there has never been a better time to find a top secret group of D clan members than right now. Heck, even Lodestar might have that D clan, again a reason for someone to go there. But beside that though, we do need to ask also what Vivi's future role is gonna be as well, because honestly, personally, I don't really think it fits right now, at least for her to join the crew. I mean, her power level is probably laughably low compared to the rest of the Straw Hats, and so maybe instead I wonder if she will rally Luffy's allies to help him in his ultimate fight against the world government. However, we can also not forget that Imu has a somewhat strange obsession with Lily, which seems to also extend to Vivi, so she could still be kidnapped and become a damsel in distress for the final saga of the story. There's a lot of ways for this to go, and also no beef with the people who think that Vivi will join the crew or is already part of the crew. Might happen later. I mean, let's wait and see. And then, with all the chaos going on at the end of Egghead Island, Jewelry Bonnie and Kuma have definitely taken a backseat to the intense fighting right now, and at this point, there is still a really strong possibility, I think, that Bonnie, or maybe even one of the Vegapunks, actually joins the crew. Let's be honest, she actually still fits many of the Straw Hat criteria, and her dream could be to restore her father with ancient technology. However, Bonnie joining is actually far from certain at this point, so it also wouldn't surprise me if she took her father and tried to fix his body, or just simply lived out of the rest of her lives in peace. Though at the same time, I feel like there is a lot of unresolved business, so it would be cool if she actually joined the Straw Hats. Now, that of course really leaves just one group who could truly make a difference in the final saga of One Piece, and of course, I'm talking about all of the former Roger pirates out there still in the world. I mean, okay, we've already mentioned the mentor role that Scopper Gaban could play, but what about the entire rest of them? Look at them, there's so many. Okay, obviously there's Shanks and Buggy, who are still major players in the current events, but neither of them actually know the true history like the other Roger pirates because they never went to Laugh Tale. So will Vegapunk's call out in chapter 1116 make Crocus or Rayleigh step up and try to help at the end, or any of these other Roger pirates? Like, there's the fisherman guy and the giant, like there's so many of them. I'm not exactly sure, but at this point I wouldn't be surprised by anything in the story. However, there is one other major source of ancient history that is sure to play a huge role in the final saga as well, because do you know what is literally the only piece of writing about the Void Century that we as fans can actually read? Of course, I'm talking about the famous pirate song Bing Sake. And after decades, I think I might have finally cracked the code of what the song is actually about. The entire story of Joy Boy, how he used the ancient weapons, a lot of cool stuff hidden in the song in the Japanese and everything. So, I mean, you don't want to miss out on that. Please let me know if you have other ideas, but this is an absolutely cool video. I think I'm very proud of how this turned out, and actually, I want to hear your thoughts and let me know if you think something means something different. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. I will hopefully see you in this next one.